Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central and welcome back to another Omen by HB player interview. Omen by HB, of course, the official PC partner of the Overwatch League, but also an official partner of the Overwatch World Cup, which comes to an end next week at Blizzcon. So I figured before then we'll sit down with the new Team UK main tank Fusions to talk about the state of Reinhardt, the meta as a whole, but most importantly two very unique strategies that could be the new meta down the line, one of which is called Doats. So we'll be going over some crazy strategies that have been used in the pro scene, and a whole lot more. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So because we haven't had you on the channel before, Fusions, who are you and why should people listen to you when it comes to the main tank role?
Hey, so I'm Fusions from British Hurricane. I'm the main tank for their team and also the main caller as well. So generally I usually call for my team and have to have a good understanding of what I'm talking about and what the meta is.
And you're also now the Team UK main tank too, that you'll be good to BlizzCon.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be going with Team UK. Hopefully we can show off what we've been working on there. Been practicing hard.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today is just I think the meta tends to follow what the main tank's doing. You are like the first tip of the spear kind of thing. Mostly depends on the meta, right? Whatever you play, everybody else tends to follow suit, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with like the Goats meta, you're obviously in front of everyone and it kind of depends on you what everyone else has to play around, because in Goats you really have to pocket your Reinhardt and play around your Reinhardt, so it's definitely relevant.
Speaking of Goats, on a scale of 1 to 10 and whether it's going up or down, how much is the meta dictated by Goats, especially in the highest tier? Is it getting better or worse? Like, where are we at when it comes to Goats comp and this current meta?
Obviously we haven't seen Owl for a while, so I can't really talk about the Overwatch League, but outside of Overwatch League, especially in EU, I'd honestly say like 8 or 9, because on a large majority of the maps, and on every single map that you can play Goats and make it work, there's always teams in, especially regions like Europe and NA now as well, where teams will just play Goats, and you have to either know how to play against it or how to match it, and where you need to do what against it, so I'd say it really heavily dictates the meta right now.
But you as a team at British Hurricane, you can play Goats, but you try and play around it, mostly. So what kind of strategies do you have in place of being able to, like, obviously not giving too much away, mind, but like what kind of strategies come to mind when it comes to countering Goats? If you were to describe, like, very concisely how you counter Goats, how would you do it?
For us, generally, as a team, anytime that we can play around high grounds and teams have to push into us to take a certain point or push a payload, we like to play Sombra Doomfist comps, where we usually put Kib on the Doomfist and Nesh on the Sombra, and we just kind of try and pressure them as much as we can while stalling the payload a bit so they can't push for free, or stalling the point, and then rotating our ultimates. So we'll EMP them as they come back in, and then we'll drop on them with the Nano Monkey or a Nano Doomfist, and we'll just try and rotate ults like that as they come back in.
That goes on quite nicely to the state of Reinhardt, I think. It must be infuriating to play him right now. Like, not only does he have a lot of bugs in the game that are fairly inconsistent, but also you are like the #1 target for CC of Doomfists, Discord Orb as you said, having your shield mode down. First of all, how are you not going insane right now? But I guess mostly, how do you like deal with that? Effectively deal with that you're not just been farmed 24/7?
Well, in competitive, it's kind of hard to sometimes not want to go crazy because of playing against Doomfist and playing against like Mei, for example, where you don't really have any counterplay as a tank player. I'd say the best thing you can kind of do in your comp games to make sure that people give you like help when you're doing that is to either try and get your team to run a brig with you, or try and get your team to play with you, so that when you get dove on by Doomfist, you don't just get 1v1'd and there's no counterplay whatsoever. So just try and play around your team. In a team environment, it's much different.
What is the priority to fix for you that have hundreds and thousands of hours in this hero now?
I would really like for them to fix Shatter properly, which obviously they tried to do, and then they ended up with the double Shatter, which was like the most frustrating thing ever to play with, and also for every Reinhardt player you played against as well. I think in general how Reinhardt works as a whole is okay, but like honestly his ultimate is just has been so buggy for so long. Like I really wish they would fix his Shatter properly, because I think other than that he's, I mean, pretty well-rounded hero. I think he does his job quite well.
you had a game this weekend going up against Team Biscuits, which were a team in Contenders Trials, which you unfortunately got relegated to. But so far, you've got promoted back up, which is great. Congratulations. But there was one strategy that I really wanted to point out. You were playing on the Hanamura. They were attacking, and they got the point within a minute both times with a Hammond triple DPS dive. What were your opinions on that? Why was that so successful? And do you think that that could be something that we see more? Like, we'll show footage of it on screen, but what did you think of this when you ran into this? And do you think that it could be used more?
So for the most part, I think there were two factors that kind of made this good in this scenario. The first being obviously that it caught us off guard. We'd never played against it. We had no idea what to do against it. In general, we just tried to play it like a normal dive comp, but obviously there's other factors that you can't really do against like a Hammond Doomfist that you would usually do against a Monkey D.Va, for example. But the second thing that I think actually makes it relevant on this point is the fact that on Hanamura, it's kind of hard for a Monkey and a D.Va to dive really far where the Zen and Ana usually play in the back right room, all the way at the back of point. And I think what the Hammond Doomfist over the Monkey D.Va there gives you is the ability to actually get to those supports and like dive on them and actually blow them up in one shot and then actually survive the dive as well, because usually a Monkey will just jump there and he'll get blown up before he even gets the kill on the Zen. So I think that's what actually makes it relevant on that point.
Could you see it being used more on different maps? Because it is a really like fun strategy to watch, and we get to see a bit more Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for sure. I do think we could see it, although I do think that teams would counterplay it a lot better later on. And the weakness of it as well, that I think is the weakness of it, is that the fact that Winston D.Va give you a much better sustainability after the dive if you survive it, where they can kind of anchor the point and they can't really be forced off. Whereas Hammond Doomfist with Genji Tracer, obviously you don't really have anything to anchor the point at that point.
I don't think that strategy has a name, but what would you call it?
What would I call it? I don't know, actually. Something around the lines of inting. Because you kind of just... That's the whole strategy. You just kind of int into the enemy backline and pray. Fingers crossed, hit your abilities and just pray.
What like, for those that don't know, what does inting mean? Just to sort of describe it.
Obviously, used a lot in like other games, but usually just stands for intentionally feeding, where you just kind of go into the backline, but obviously you're not actually feeding. It's just a phrase teams use when they see someone go really deep in nowadays.
Another strategy that you ran, and Team UK ran a little bit, that got a little bit of traction, was Doats. So, for those that don't know, what is the Doats strategy, and where did you implement it and use it for British Hurricane, at least?
So, Doats is pretty much Goats, but instead of playing it with Reinhardt Zarya, you play it with a Hammond and a Winston. So you have Hammond, Winston, D.Va with a Brig, and then a Lucio and either an Ana or a Zen, depending on the point. And pretty much what it is a strategy kind of like the one we talked about with Ball Doomfist, where you really just go super, super hard into the backline and you just try and get as many abilities off as possible. You CC them with the Hammer knock-up, the Monkey lands on them, does as much damage as possible. You can't really die because you have so many heals keeping everyone alive and there's no way they can get to your backline. So it's kind of just a strategy where you really want to go in really, really hard and just try and do as much damage to the backline as you can to blow them up.
And it's effectively Dive Guts, that's where the name's derivative from, right?
Yeah, that's what it stands from, yeah. It stands for, yeah.
It's sort of the first time that you played it for British Hurricane, right? So the question is, where was it good? Where did it suck? Can you see it being used more either by yourselves, British Hurricane, or just other teams in the future? Do you sort of expect this Doats comp to maybe go somewhere, kind of like this triple DPS Wrecking Ball comp? Does it have potential to be something else?
I think it does have potential to be a good comp. People just really have to figure out where to run it and what it's good against. Although I think with Wrecking Ball being a part of it and being a key part of it as well, I think it's going to take a long time for teams to learn. So I don't think we will see much of it at BlizzCon, but I definitely think it could be something if there's no nerfs to those heroes that we could see in the future for sure.
You sort of mentioned there that because Wrecking Ball was in the lineup, that would almost be a detriment to it. Are teams just not playing Wrecking Ball? Is there still a lot that people are trying to... Like, again, is there potential in this hero, especially seeing as, you know, you played a Wrecking Ball in that lineup, so you're almost playing him as the main tank. Is that his role? Like, I know that's sort of like a lot of questions in one, but where's Wrecking Ball in all of this? Like, what's wrong, I suppose?
I think the problem with Wrecking Ball over Winston or D.Va or any tank hero right now is the fact that he's inconsistent in terms of how you can dive with him. Obviously, Monkey players have a lot of practice on. People know the exact spots to dive. They know where you've got to land, where you've got to cut people off. Same with D.Va. D.Va's just too important in terms of peel. She can counter dive really well. She can dive if you need her to. The bomb is quite a good ult still for zoning. It always has been. And Wrecking Ball doesn't really have that effect in terms of when he dives in. He can't peel as well as D.Va. He can't dive as well as a Winston can because it's harder to actually set up a dive. But the thing with Wrecking Ball is his CC is actually really good, and his ability to like kite teams and just put pressure on their backline is really good if you can make the dive work in the first place. So I think when teams and people start getting better at Wrecking Ball, you might see a lot more of him. But I can't say for sure yet because no one's really reached that level of Wrecking Ball play yet, I think.
BlizzCon's right around the corner. You, of course, will be playing in the Team USA match that'll be lined up. What do you sort of expect other teams to be running? Not giving away what Team UK is planning to do, but do you expect that every team's just going to be running goats?
I think you'll see a fair amount of goats, but I don't think you will see any team exclusively run goats. A lot of teams like you saw some of the smaller European countries like Austria and Switzerland, for example, just running goats everywhere. I think you will see a lot of goats at BlizzCon, but where it's good. I don't think you'll see it forced into places that it shouldn't really be played. I think you might see it more from some of the European teams than you will from some of the American teams because the NA region in general has less practice on the GOATS composition than the EU region does. But I don't think we're going to see it overly, but we definitely will see it in places that it's good, where it's close combat, where you can really make it work.
Where would you not play GOATS then?
I wouldn't want to play GOATS, ideally, where there's any high ground that you have to push into, or any places that they can easily surround you. Obviously, places like Legion Garden, where you're walking over the bridge, aren't ideal, because you can just get booped off, but those are like rare scenarios. I'd say in general, like a map like Dorado is a good example, where if you're pushing into an enemy team where you're attacking Dorado second, it's really easy for them with a Doomfist or a Sombra to just go in, do damage, farm ults, and then get out without dying and go back to the high ground. And they can just kind of pressure you the whole time. And once your Rhine Shield breaks, you have no Matrix, you have no bubbles. If they find a nade or a hack or a good ult, a good EMP, a good nano boost, it's really easy for them to just split you apart and kill you one by one. And then it gets really hard to actually get through because they can snowball you with their ults.
Is that why teams are playing a lot of like Rialto in like trials? At least it seems to be the most common pure escort map that's picked. Is that because it's really good for GOATSCom?
Rialto is definitely really, really good for GOATSCom, and a lot of teams who prefer GOATS will play it there for that reason. Personally, for British Hurricane, we pick it because we know it's a good GOATS map, and if we're confident that we can beat an opponent team's GOATS, then we will pick that map just because we know that it's going to be basically exclusively GOATS there, and we can just outplay them on that one composition and force them into like a zone where they're quite uncomfortable, and we think that we can win the map.
For sure. And I guess sort of penultimately to finish on, if you're in Jeff Kaplan's situation, you have a opportunity to balance the game to be a lot more diverse, better suited towards different compositions. You of course aren't just a Reinhardt one trick, you do play Winston and Orisa. How would you balance the game to make it a little bit more open and less goatsy?
I don't like targeting single heroes in terms of nerfs when talking about compositions, but I really do think the thing that makes GOATS so good as a composition is the Brig in the middle of it. Obviously, before Brig was a thing, you saw a lot of quad tank in EU, but not really in any other regions. But back then it wasn't as good. For example, Eagle Gaming played a lot of quad tank in Season 1, and they were quite a good team with it. They were really practiced on it, and they did quite well. But in general, teams like us, teams like Giganti, back then we kind of played around it, and the teams that really practiced against it well knew how to work against it. But with the addition of Brig, it really gives like a solid backbone to the GOATS composition and kind of makes it invincible in a sense in a lot of places where you can't really get in. Obviously, a Winston tries to jump into GOATS, you're stunned, and then you die. Anything else tries to go too close, you can get stunned, and it's really risky. So I think I don't know what you would nerf about Brig, but a certain nerf to Brig would definitely help bring down the reign of GOATS, so to say.
And I guess finally, what final things do you want to say about with the meta, and where can people find you if you stream and stuff? Where can people find more from Team UK's new main tank?
Well, if you want to see more of me, obviously, you can head over to my Twitter, you can head over to my Twitch. I stream quite regularly. I'll be playing at Blizzcon, so hopefully you'll be able to cheer for me there when I play on stage. It's going to be really good. Hopefully we can upset Team USA. We got some comps planned, we got some stuff we've been practicing, and I think we're going to do quite well against them.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching, and also thanks to Omen by HP for helping support this video. You can find all of Fusion's stuff in the description below, and good luck to the boys at BlizzCon. We'll of course be covering all of the news that comes out of there, but until next time, take care, we'll see you then.